All right, y'all, welcome to the show. Got a lot to get into. So in just a second, there are some U.S. doctors who were in Gaza, and they have absolute nightmare, hell-on-earth stories to tell. And one of the doctors is now speaking out. I'm going to warn you in advance, this first segment that we're about to do right now is dark, bro. It is dark. So we'll talk about that. We also have Michael Moore dropping a shocking election prediction. I got some thoughts on what his thoughts are. Then later on, Trump goes full eugenics on us. He's clearly... Remember the Leonardo DiCaprio character in, 12 Years a Slave with Jamie Foxx? Like, Trump is sort of flirting with the eugenics and phrenology type stuff. Not even flirting with it, just outright taking the position. And I got a wild clip, actually a bunch of clips to show you with his thoughts on that. And then later on, Kamala gets bombarded on 60 Minutes with bullshit right-wing framing. And Nick Fuentes is now committing to taking down Donald Trump. And we have a new study on Trump's tax policy. And it turns out he wants to massively raise taxes on working class people and massively cut them on the wealthy. What a shock. It's almost exactly like his first term. All right, so without any further ado, let's dive into it. By the way, you guys know the drill. Everybody do me a big favor. Please subscribe to the channel. That helps out massively, and it costs you nothing. Thank you to everybody who supports this show on Patreon. We couldn't do it without you. If you're so inclined, that's also below as well. All right, let's go ahead and dive into it. So Ahmed on MSNBC had on a U.S. doctor who was in Gaza, and he has some nightmare stories for us. We're going to listen to this. Then I have another clip for you when this guy did an interview on a different network. And this one that you're about to see right now is bad. I think the other one is even worse. So let's listen and we'll break it down.
You also wrote in that letter, we wish you could see the nightmares that plague so many of us since we have returned. Does it feel maddening to you, doctor, to see this level of devastation and not see anything significantly change in terms of how the U.S. treats Israel?
It's horrible. The United States is responsible for 80% of the bombs that have dropped on the innocent Palestinians. We are conflating anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism. And every time the students protest or anybody protests, we're told that this is anti-Semitic, when in fact, what we're witnessing is a pure Israeli right-wing government's land grab of innocent Palestinian land. And we're enabling that by buying 2,000-pound bombs that were meant to penetrate, granite in Afghanistan and bust bunkers. And they're dropping them on 10 cities, killing untold numbers of human beings, innocent human beings. This is not Israel looking for the isolated Hamas soldier. This is Israel deliberately killing the Palestinian civilians, deliberately targeting.
By the way, I should point out, we covered the letters yesterday. You guys should go read the whole thing. But according to them, the U.S. doctors, I believe it's 99 U.S. doctors who are on the ground in Gaza, they say the 41,000 UN number of dead Palestinians, or even the 48,000, or I think now it's 50, from Euromed Monitor, the human rights group, they say even that is just not accurate. The number is way, way higher than that. They estimate about 118,000 dead Palestinians. And then they go on to describe the absolute horrors that they witnessed with their own two eyes.
You and your fellow healthcare workers also write that the death toll in Gaza is far greater than the numbers we have from the Palestinian Health Ministry, currently around 41,000 people. You all estimate that it's closer to or more than 118,000.
There you go.
That is about 5% of Gaza's total population. How do you explain that huge gap? How did you get to that number?
That was calculated by researchers that published it recently in Lancet.
The Lancet actually said 186,000, I believe, was the number they said. But I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I think they were saying it's 186,000, and that includes, sorry, Stinky's using a dog toy behind me, some extrapolation. That includes some extrapolation into the future. And it's like direct and indirect deaths from what Israel is doing, just mass bombing campaign, carpet bombing in Gaza.
Look at the early figures after the Haitian earthquake, or the earthquake that was recently in Turkey. The numbers climb exponentially, and those are bodies that were recovered from excavation of the rubble. There's hundreds of millions of tons of rubble that have never, maybe decades before it's excavated in Gaza. We dropped, and most Americans don't appreciate this, we dropped the equivalent of not just the bomb that fell on Nagasaki, which is bigger than the Gaza Strip. We dropped the equivalent of the atomic bomb that fell on both Hiroshima and Nagasaki on the Gaza Strip in the equivalence of TNT. The amount of destruction that American tax dollars have paid for is immeasurable.
In a political... Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. was just going to say the number of people that will never be accounted for is huge. I myself have seen people that were brought to the ER that were shredded like paper. There's no way to identify them.
To his point, historically, when there's a genocide or a large atrocity, it is true that, like, in real time, it is always, always, always an undercount. And then only later on do you get some idea of what the true damage was and how many people actually died. And even then, you don't get an exact figure, right? But in real time, it's always an undercount.
It's a striking point that you made in this letter to Biden and Harris, that every one of you who worked in an emergency room, intensive care, or surgical setting treated children with shots to the head and chest on a regular basis. We've heard accounts like this, of course, from other doctors who volunteered in Gaza, but I wanted to ask you specifically about your own experience. Tell us about what it is that you saw that made you believe these young children were targeted with shots to the head and the chest.
Well, first of all, everybody that was with our team has vast experience with high-velocity bullet wounds. And there's a distinct difference between a pistol round and a high-velocity bullet wound. We had children that were hit with such high-velocity bullet wounds, exactly where I would put my stethoscope. And when we rolled them over, the entire chest cavity is missing from them. Everything between their shoulder blades, their spinal cord, their lungs, their hearts is never even brought into the operating room. And then they were shot perfectly in their temple, and their brains are missing. No child gets shot twice by mistake by a sniper. One child was ripped out of his father's hand as he was walking them. He went looking for them. 10 meters away, he found his child. And as he looked over for him, he was shot the second time in the head. He didn't even know he was shot in the chest first, but he saw the head hit. And then he was brought to our ER.
Massive credit to Ahmed on MSNBC for actually giving a shit and being a journalist and a reporter and interviewing a U.S. doctor who was on the ground. And start the clock, because he ain't going to be at MSNBC much longer. Tell you that right now. All right, I got one more for you. Same doctor, different interview.
When were you in Gaza?
End of April for the first couple of weeks. And then there's sniper bullets. I had children that were shot twice.
Wait, you're saying that children in Gaza are being shot by snipers?
Definitively. I have two children that I have photographs of that were shot so perfectly in the chest I couldn't put my stethoscope over their heart more accurately, and directly on the side of the head in the same child. No toddler gets shot twice by mistake by the world's best sniper. And they're dead center shots.
In fact, more than 20 doctors recently in Gaza also told Sunday Morning about gunshot wounds to children. One American doctor told us he even reviewed CT scans to confirm what he saw because he, quote, didn't believe that this many children could be admitted to a single hospital with gunshot wounds to the head. Some shootings have been captured on video.
So of all the disaster zones you've seen, how does Gaza compare?
All of the disasters I've seen combined, 40 mission trips, 30 years, ground zero, earthquakes, all of that combined doesn't equal the level of carnage that I saw against civilians in just my first week in Gaza.
That's an astonishing thing. That's an astonishing thing right there. And I don't think you'll even get a response from the Biden administration. I don't think he'll even acknowledge this man's existence, even though he's now been on MSNBC, what's this, CBS. He's getting his story out there. The Gaza healthcare letters just came out. That should be a huge deal. Should be front page of every single news outlet in the country. My guess is they won't even comment on it. They'll just sweep it under the rug.
And when you say civilians, is it mostly children?
Almost exclusively children.
Oh,
I've never seen that before. Never seen that. I've seen more incinerated children than I've ever seen in my entire life combined. I've seen more shredded children in just the first week.
Shredded?
Shredded.
What do you mean?
Missing body parts, being crushed by buildings, the greatest majority, or bomb explosions, the next greatest majority. We've taken shrapnel as big as my thumb out of 8-year-olds.
The UN reports that to date, more than 80% of Gaza's population has been displaced, and the majority of its buildings destroyed. A reality which has taken its own toll on the well-being of children.
What about the emotional wounds?
How can you measure that? I can't measure my own. How do you be an orphan and watching your family, melted in front of you and shredded in front of you? How do you fix that? Ever fix that?
In fact, so many Palestinian children have had family members killed that doctors created a shorthand term, WCNSF, wounded child, no surviving family.
I've run out of ways to describe this for months now, right? I've run out of ways to adequately get across to you the reality and the nature of the situation that's happening on the ground. You know? And then there'll still be people out there that are like, you're being hyperbolic. You're not being fair to the Israelis. It's like, really? Like, how much evidence do you need, right? Like, how much evidence do you need? Sincerely, you need mass graves? We got them. You need concentration camps where they torture Palestinians systemically? We got them. You need it on video that they're torturing them? We got it. You need top Israeli officials making casually genocidal statements like would come out of Nazi Germany? We got them. We got an endless list of that. You need U.S. doctors on the ground describing in detail the absolute horror of children purposely being targeted for murder. We got it. We got it. We got it. And we're all just going to act like this is normal? I got to show you this. I saw this yesterday. I don't know who made this, but it's a dystopian ad where we fast forward to 2040. And the way people will discuss at the time what's happening in Gaza right now. Watch this.
Welcome to your afternoon newscast. Today marks the 16th anniversary of the tragic genocide. Commemorations are being held all around the world.
So it's like you see the statues of the kids who were massacred, you see a museum, you see everybody talking about it on TV, and then towards the end, you get this part where the kids ask like their grandparents, like, what were you fucking doing during this? Like, how did you let this happen?
왜 아무것도 안 하셨어요?
Was hast du während des Völkermords gemacht, Großvater?
What were you doing during the genocide, Grandpa? I mean, look, you can say it's hyperbolic, but you're just wrong. If you're saying, like, I don't know, like, you're just wrong if you say that. Like, obviously so. So look, just to put this in perspective for you, this is from ABC News. We got some new polling that just came out on what's happening in Gaza. And I want to show you, look. More Americans say Israel's response is too harsh. Look, at the beginning, we were all the way down at the bottom, right? At the beginning, it was massive minority that said that, right? It was the least popular position. Now it's skyrocketed to their response being too harsh is the most popular take. And remember, it's not like everybody's watching my show. It's not like they're getting a steady diet of here's actually what's happening on the ground. They get little bits and pieces, if that, through mainstream media. And even based on that, they're like, yeah, it seems like kids are being killed. That's bad, right? So you got that. And I think we have one more here. Here we go. Americans have shifted on sending funds to the Middle East. So more Americans want to increase humanitarian aid to Palestinians. That's like 32, 33%. Then want to increase military aid to Israel. The number of Americans that want to increase military aid to Israel is under 20%. It's like 18%. So look, even with our biased and skewed media that doesn't cover this stuff adequately most of the time, the two clips you just saw are definitely an exception to that. Americans are still kind of like, yeah, this is sort of bullshit. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? So, I mean, nothing can really adequately put into context the horrors that we've witnessed. It really is that simple. And, you know, it's just every day you wake up and you pinch yourself. Like, is this really happening? Like, this shit is really happening. And it's just like casually unfolding in front of our eyes that women and children and innocent men are getting carpet bombed. And the majority of the buildings in Gaza have been absolutely wiped off the map. And you got concentration camps and torture. And you have top Israeli government officials talking about mass murder. I mean, look, there absolutely is a generational trauma argument to be made about this, right? Just like they say, if you were like sexually abused when you were a kid, oftentimes those people, they can grow up to despise sexual abuse, or they can grow up to become sexual abusers themselves, right? By the same token, if some historic atrocity is done to you or your people, like the Holocaust, like what Nazi Germany did to Jews, well, now you have the state of Israel. The Zionists are committing absolutely very similar atrocities to Palestinians. And the entire time, they have this cloak of victimhood, right? Where they say, well, if you disagree with us, absolutely bulldozing and razing villages and carpet bombing toddlers, well, then you're an anti-Semite and you're in favor of us getting slaughtered. Everything is so warped. Everything is so warped. The morality of it is so warped. The disinformation and the misleading commentary, it boggles your mind that anybody could sit here and watch this stuff and have anything but the most obvious position of this needs to stop immediately, cut off the money, cut off the weapons, and arrest the top Israeli government officials. Because if they're allowed to continue to be free, then there is no such thing as international law. It just doesn't exist. It's just fake. It's just a veneer of seriousness over a world where we live in where might makes right. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.